All right, welcome back. Still here with Dr. Kalua and CS Murkomen. There's a lot of questions coming in, Dr. Kalua, about the car itself, how much it costs and maintenance as well. So you talked about, of course, we're saving on fuel costs and whatnot. But if a Kenyan is thinking about downsizing from the guzzler you were just talking about, how practical is that for them?
About 1.6, 1.7, 1.5. We're still working out because they're going to be produced locally. But I said, you call the CEO and you speak to her, but the vehicle is anyway going to be around.
To get the specs.
So proud to have it produced locally. We already, just 2 days before this, we already have requests for about 314 units pre-ordered.
Wow.
And we are looking to have that met before December. So that's how we're doing it.
So 300 vehicles coming in. I was looking at a Kipra report.
Orders.
Those are orders.
Orders.
Of the vehicles that will be coming in.
People who are saying, I want it. And actually 100 or something, the CEO was telling me earlier today, has been done by the Honorable President of Kenya. People are just saying, I want that one that's being driven by the president.
And you'll need the infrastructure to charge, because right now Kipra is saying we have 5 charging stations in Nairobi, 1 in Mombasa. What are the plans to scale?
We need to understand this, and I am happy you're talking about this. First of all, that car can be charged in your own home. Okay. So you only need a few hours to charge. Few means overnight as you sleep, between 4 hours to 8 hours, depending if you're using a fast charger or a slow charger. And therefore you can charge it at home, and you don't need any more than what you charge at home, because it's 300 kilometers. The green one, the avocado green car that you can see there, gives you 200 kilometers. You don't need more than that, so you can charge at home. But even more than that, the EV Mobility Association is having members who are doing. One of them has got 16 different locations with chargers in the city, in Nakuru and other places. So this should not worry anybody else. And I must remind Kenyans and your viewers that this is mature technology. People can be able to use this and without any problem. The only thing that we have is the culture. The bigger the car I drive, the more successful I look.
Status symbol.
And this is where it's only the level of my dear in-law here can deal with by showing by example, by working on things like we are talking about decarbonizing our economy and our constitution and getting to all this, relating to the issues of carbon that mwananchi can understand. When you lock yourself in a garage and put on your car, you will die. When you put on charcoal in your room and no any additional air, you will die. That is what the cars that are on the road today are doing. They are the reason why our rivers are drying. They are the reason why we have sicknesses, like CS has just said. They are the reason why we are not having money in our pockets. They are the reason why money is being diverted to buy fertilizer, because Africa has lost 1/3 of its production of agricultural output because of related issues on carbon, on climate change. And therefore we need to start. That is why the importance of carbon and what has come up now, unprecedented in the world, that out of this meeting, that we are now going to have a carbon tax, where people were selling carbon. It has been at about 40 shillings to 80 shillings, $80 to $80. Who said it's like preparing charcoal and then you put it on the road and then expect that a truck that is going to pass by, so leo mnanunua na pesa ngapi? And yet you're the one who has produced all this. Right. And there is a way that you can be doing it. Why is it not $200? Why is it not $500? Whatever it is. So we have a product that the emitters out there, take it or leave it. We find we have something that we can share on the table. Yeah. And that is the direction we need to take. So I wish to assure Kenyans that this is a good direction. We need to lead by example. I expect and look forward. The family of electric mobility now is growing. The biggest companies, of course, globally, we're naming Honda, which I'm part of, naming Bajaj and other TVS and other companies. The global pie chart will remain the same.
Yeah.
The leader will always be the leader, and others, including other suppliers of this.
And just to be clear for our viewers, you know, greening the urban transport system is not just e-mobility.
No,
right? You know, we need more people walking, which they already are.
Quite a lot.
So, Waziri, where are we doing the cycling paths?
That's where we were going.
Right.
Let me first say that I hope the public doesn't think that by Isaac talking about bigger vehicles being, you know, a problem, they may form the impression that you cannot have an electric vehicle which is big.
Right.
Yes, exactly. What is important? We have buses that are electric. Right. We have lorries that will be electric. We have bigger vehicles that will be electric. So it's up to the citizen to choose what they want. And the second fact, which is important, is that we have electric vehicles are more expensive than the petrol vehicles or the one that are using the carbon emitters. And that is a fact. Number three is that why the president was talking about global financial justice system is because to invest in Africa, and you are investing in such a very important, clean, green vehicle, you need money, you need capital. Yet to access the capital here is 5 times more expensive than in a developed world. Mm-hmm. So the justice that the president was speaking to is the fact that we need, if we need to exploit this green energy, this clean energy that is in our continent, yeah, we need to access the resources for investing in this energy in an affordable manner, so that then it is not still the big boys who can only get the money and come back here and invest here. Even the locals here can do something about the parts, can do something about the batteries and so forth. I wanted to clear that issue. Okay. Number two is, on your question, is that the truth is that these people we are also berating, that they are using their private vehicles, are very few people. Right. Yeah, they are 13% of the people. The only problem with them is that everyone is in one car. 2 people, 1, 2, 1, 2 in one car. The rest of the population, 40% of the people in Nairobi walk on foot, right, yeah, or they use, they cycle their bicycles. The other 40%, or nearly 40%, are using public transport. So first, if we want to solve this problem, what do? You make sure that there is a dignified way of moving. There is a cheaper public transport because it's using renewable energy, right, which is cheaper than biofuels. Once you do that, you reduce the cost of transport. But if you make it also dignified, you ensure that the 13% who are moving around their vehicles, which are now going to be expensive with the cost of biofuels or the petrol becoming higher, right, they will leave their vehicles and use the public transport. And what do? You'll reduce traffic, you'll reduce the emissions. That is the objective, the ultimate objective. Instead of quarreling people and telling them, leave your car, we are doing this, right, provide for them alternative, and that's what we're working with. We are working in Namata together with the 5 counties. I chair the Council of Namata. Governor Sakaja is my vice. The governor of Kiambu, Muranga, Machakos, and Kajiado are part of it. And we want to assure Kenyans. You know, sometimes we joke around with Sakaja and say we are young people. We have an objective to make sure that we leave a legacy, we have a name to protect. And we've set our eyes on December 2024 okay, to make sure that we have a model that Kenyans will be proud of on Line 2 in Thika Road, so that then that can inspire the private investments. Next month, hopefully, the president will be witnessing a final signing of the BRT Line 3. Mm-hmm. There's an investment of 49 billion of concessional loan and resources that are going to be given by European Union. We are working with the Korean government with a loan of 1% that is going to develop also Line 3. So these are the resources, these are the investment. When people say, oh, people came to the climate change conference and they said nothing. No, as I said, it's not money, it's not a donation. I know by my experience and in my experience with the investments in the transport sector, that if all those 5 lines are going to be invested by this different conglomeration of governments extending concessional loans to build this infrastructure, that is what we will have attracted as part and parcel of climate money, climate-friendly investments.
So what about simpler infrastructure fixes?
Yeah, coming there.
Yeah.
We have a problem in our city and many of our towns. The roads were built for cars, not for people.
Right.
So there are no walkways, there are no cycling paths. The other problem is that you will find that even where you have a fairly good road reserves, you have all the utilities on the road reserves. Right. So you have the electricity, you used to have previously the telephone poles. Now all the utilities are on those lines, at least, and the drainage is there. So everything is competing for the road reserve. You want to put it as a walking path and cycling path. Now, even where you have a better space, there are roadside traders who have occupied the entire place. So people, even if you want to prepare a walk path for them, people are there, either they are parking or people who are doing business.
That's a compliance issue, isn't it?
It's a compliance issue, and it is a local government compliance issue. We want the enforcement from the county government, but you know, they need some help and assistance, but also it's a behavior. Is a behavior change. People must respect. If you walk, if you go to Langata Road, you will find thousands of people leaving Kibera going to work in industrial area. Yeah. The other problem we have in this city is that, yes, we can pride ourselves and say that people are walking. The NMT is more popular, walking is more popular, but it's not by choice. Those people are not walking because they want to walk. Yeah, they're walking because public transport has failed. It's expensive, and they are unable to get a public transport from Kibera straight to go to industrial area because it's costly. So first, we need to provide. And for those who want to walk by choice, we need to make sure that the walk paths are provided for. And we've done, I must commend Kura, where the spaces, they have tried their best. We have agreed that by December, we are going to issue another new building, a code for building roads for standards. That will make sure that all the contracts that we are going to award must have non-motorized transport in it. Unfortunately, of course, we also make land acquisition very expensive, even if the government wanted to acquire more land so that they can do cycling paths and walk paths, but progressively. And my encouragement is that we are going to convene a meeting at the summit level. The president is going to chair with the county government for us to agree on a few things. One, that all the cities where we have, that everybody now agrees to implement non-motorized transport, the walk paths and the cycling paths. Number 2 is to help each other to know how to get off traders from road reserve for 2 reasons. One, for people who are meant to use the road reserve to use it, but for the other, you remember the Londiani incident, to make sure that you save people's lives, because if anything was to happen along the road reserve, an accident was to happen, we are going to lose many lives. So this is the conversation we are having, and for the sake of the public to know, on 4th of August last month, I gazetted a task force whose responsibility is to develop a policy, legal and regulatory framework for electric mobility. That task force will help us to answer the questions you have asked about what is going to be the charging infrastructure, because these multi-government departments are all represented in this task force. So where are going to be the charging infrastructure? Recently, the president, because of his commitment, pushed for the amendments in the finance bill, which incidentally the task force chair, whom I appointed, Mr. Daniel Ngumi, was part and parcel of that conversation and working on those reforms, is that we are going to have more incentives. We have a bit of incentives now on tax breaks on electric batteries, but we are going to have more, both fiscal and also other types of incentives that are going to assist us to move to electric mobility. And then, of course, we will know what laws are going to be to regulate this sector, what regulations are going to be placed, what is the policy framework. All this combination of their delivery will help Kenyans to now attract investments from other parts of the world. So I'm very confident. From a policy perspective, we are providing the policy leadership, but as an investment factor, Ministry of Trade and Industry and Investment is working hard to bring the investors to come to. So we are working in a like my colleague Nakumicha said, our all-government approach to making sure that we deliver on e-mobility, and not as a function of one corner where we are saying, oh, those are the people of electric mobility. No, it will be a wholesome responsibility for all of us to move to climate-friendly investment in our country.
And that is definitely the question that we will be putting towards government as we move. Let's take a look at some of the questions coming in. Dr. Kalua, I know you wanted to respond really quickly.
No, I was just thinking, Waziri is saying very good things.
Yes, he is.
And they sound very good.
We need to see the action. Exactly.
And I know that there are organizations of yours that are doing very good. Talk about Kenha. I have had meetings with them discussing on the importance of accommodating the road for all road users, including motorcyclists, and they've already implemented some of these things. Talk about Kura. There are good officers that are doing excellent work. Kazanat tu kidogo. I think everybody wants to work, especially when they are pushed, and Kenyans want services. And that, once we get it done, Waziri, I know. And the other thing, Waziri, what he's not telling us, is that he does not have money to do some of these things. There is some way that we can be able to get these things. Give this minister money. He will get every job that he's talking about here. The task force that he has put, excellent. A1. There is only what needs to be pushed so that kila mtu ajitume, because you are doing it on behalf of Kenyans. Right. By the way, I'm contemplating going to court because of the roads are not marked. Bumps hazijamakiwa. Na tunasema accidents zinazidi.
Now you're taking us in a different direction,
no,
Dr. Kalua.
This is what I'm just asking him to.
Yeah, let's take a look at some of the feedback coming in. All right. This one coming in from Engineer Lazaro saying CS for Transport should introduce strict rules to companies importing electric motorcycles and vehicles to protect the country from becoming a dump site for substandard goods. You want to respond to that?
Yes, that's exactly why the task force is in place. That task force is as a representation of Kenya Bureau of Standards. Yeah. And we are going to, they will be now, after this process, they should be able to announce to the public the standards required for electric vehicles and electric batteries. And he's right. If we are not careful, of course, you can easily have substandard batteries here, which if they after 3 months they can't function again, then the question will be, how do you dispose them? Then again, you shoot yourself on the foot because it runs counter to the environmental objectives that you wanted.
Precisely.
There is even more danger in this, and I agree with Waziri, that the modification of existing vehicles into electric is a bigger danger than even the importation, because there is a global standard on how these things should be done. Right. Some of the vehicles that you see being transformed could be a very big danger in all this. But the good thing, and I agree with him, I'm sure that the institution that he has formed, the task force, is going to lead this, because there are global standards about doing this, so that it is an end-to-end management of the entire asset.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Another question here from Noah saying, ask the CS and Wana Green why they have not considered approaching the richest man in the world, Elon Musk, to invest his well-established automotive and clean energy company, Tesla, here in Kenya, since it produces relatively cheaper long-range vehicles. And I'm sure he will help with establishing the charging networks across the country. Waziri, have you talked to Mr. Musk?
we want Musk and many other investors to come here. By the way, the truth is that the leading producer of electric vehicles is in China. It is Chinese government and Chinese investors, Chinese private companies that are doing more. Right. And now you don't have to worry about the engine, because there is no, it is an electric car. The old time that you are saying this engine is going to burn fuel better than this other one, now every car, the electric revolution is almost equalizing the older investors in automobile industry and the ones who are coming in. So as a matter of fact, we invite everybody. But the chip is saying that Tesla is cheaper. Cheap is a factor of many things, including taxes. The question you ask yourself is that car will arrive here at what cost? And why is it cheap in country? Why and not in X? You know, the incentives that the American government has put for electric vehicles that many developed countries have done. That's why I said cheap is because they access capital at a reasonable price, but also the tax regime, the other incentives have been put in place to make sure that they support the e-mobility sector. And that's why this task force plays an extremely important role in proposing policies that later, when I now present to the cabinet and the country adopts it and takes it to parliament, we will have a roadmap, a clear roadmap on how electric mobility will be rolled out in the country. But that doesn't stop science to go on. The vehicles are already in place. We are just catching up to make sure that the legal framework is right for the adoption of the e-mobility.
And hopefully that takes a short amount of time.
I'm glad that Waziri has also talked about that, because it is true China is leading on electric vehicles. In fact, the company that has partnered with Autopax is the best in the world in that. Secondly, affordability is an issue, because now that is why deliberately a Kenyan company like Autopax and other institutions are focusing to have a vehicle that's much cheaper. From 1.7 or 2 million, under 2 million, the next vehicle is about 8 million, is about 7 million, and much, much higher. Thirdly, I have visited Elon Musk's office in the US. I left this place and deliberately going to partner with them. And of course, there is the affordability issue. They are very keen. It will take time. We also have global challenges on the charging system. They are also trying to now accommodate, because there is type 1, type 2. The US is using a different charger. Asia is using a different charger and all that. So all this, it's standardizing so that things can be done better. And Kenyans, we don't have to go all the way. There is no need to reinvent the wheel. We are now getting the best out of all these processes. And Kenyans need to have peace because of the task force that Waziri has put in place. And I believe it's going to be most transformative. Within a very short time, Kenya, do you imagine we import 6,500 cars every month? Used vehicles. Yes, used vehicles. And you can imagine that opportunity. Imagine if those vehicles are made in Kenya, if some of the components are made in Kenya, if the motorcycles that we are selling close to about 180 to 200,000 per month, 25,000 per month when we are at our best in the previous time. Imagine if, and now we are working as Honda, we are working with local institutions like Kamukunji Youth, Juakali Association, to start making all these things. And that is why we have to balance, even as we do the electric mobility, because all the other companies have already started localization. They are making 14 parts. They are creating job opportunities for our young people. And that balance is very, very important, even as we do all these things, because electrification is not yet at the grassroots. And therefore, we need to compare and consider how are we going to create jobs, even as we do this in a very, very systematic way. And the Motorcycle Assemblers Association of Kenya is doing a good job to guide, working with Kenya Association of Manufacturers. And even as discussed in the Climate Change Summit, it's not just the responsibility of the government. The corporate institutions are declaring unwarranted profits. Because how do you go declaring profits when you have used local raw materials that you did not even pay or even support the community in one way or another? You need to be able, it's no longer corporate social responsibility. It is social investment. You have to invest in where you are getting these materials. The government has got the similar load, just like the corporates, and therefore it's one of the things agreed in summit is that there is a responsibility and all, and therein lies the jobs and many other things.
Final question here from Kimani saying, kindly ask the CS what the government is doing to increase power in our grid, considering we're going more into EV, yet our grid is not even enough for the current consumption.
That is part of the challenges that we have.
Yeah.
Definitely, we need to support the investments. If you heard the president speak in this conference, and many of the speakers, a lot of conversation about climate change was investment in renewable energy. So there is a lot of indication from different investors in harnessing our geothermal and extending that investment to reach a stage where we can double our power production. But also there is still room for us to invest in one or two areas in hydro. Yeah. I know I agree totally with Isaac that we have a challenge of finances now. We have a pending bill in the road sector with commitments that are almost 700 billion Kenya shillings for us to manage to complete the roads that we have. But there's also opportunity in this sector because we don't need to use public money. We can use private money through PPP programs. And if you've had me from the period I've come to office, our conversation, whether it's the airport, the port, the roads, we are trying to now fashion them as investments. Yeah. And that's why if you had also the conversation that was going on in the summit was about bankability of the projects that we have. You can say as many things about the potential that we have, but we must reduce it to be bankable, to attract investment and for scalable. Those who are putting their money to know that they are going to put their money. And therefore, if that money is going to be put, how do you access the credit? And that's why the conversation of financial justice is happening. We must push for Africa to get to access funding at a rate that is commensurate to what others are getting in the world, even if not lesser, because of the steps we must take to achieve investment. So, rightly speaking, we need to invest in power. We need also to think about distribution of power. Kenya Power will have to do more. Recently, you saw the cabinet. There was a reform within Kenya Power. We proposed a change of the law. Directive of Kenya Power must reflect the level of private investment. Yeah. If it is 48% as it is private sector, they must have 4 directors, as the public sector has 5. Okay. Those people will help in corporate management, a proper management, and instilling corporate governance values to the company itself. We need to think even further of allowing other people to be distributors of power. It doesn't have to be a monopoly as we progress, so that then people can access power cheaper. But again, we must keep up to standards. If it is solar power, it must be solar power using solar panels that have been approved, properly passed through Kenya Bureau of Standards, and Kenya Bureau of Standards having kept its standards of integrity, so that anything that comes to our country, anything new that comes here, must start on the new footing. But I have good news for Kenyans, and I think people like Isaac here should have read the book of Hebrews and Hebrews 11 to appreciate that faith is being certain of the things we've not seen. It's just that the truth of what he said is that also faith must be followed by actions.
Sure enough.
We are working very hard in the ministry. We are working in silence. This is a capital-intensive sector. Yeah. It is not the kind of a place where you put money today, you see it tomorrow. But if you work consistently and you work right and you have the end in mind, you work from the end backwards, but you consistently work towards that. I have no doubt in my mind, I am confident that we will deliver.
Well, 2024, we'll be looking for all of those commitments that you've made.
And now that he has challenged me, I'll try to not to be December, maybe November.
We will hold you to it, and we'll be there at the launch in November 2024.
Of doing that.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Waziri and Dr. Kalua, for your time. Great insights as well in terms of what the future of e-mobility in this country can look like, and hopefully changing enough minds that we see that shift to a cleaner, greener urban transport system. Yes, Dr. Kalua.
We have one country that God placed us, a country called Kenya. It's not a Kenya Kwanza country. It is not Azimio country. It is only one Kenya. We must work extremely hard to make each other successful for the future of our generations.
Well
Let
said.
us work together. Let us, when Waziri is doing a good job, I'll be there to congratulate him. And you see, he's a son of a preacher man. He's saying, faith is good, and that is where I should have read in the Bible. But because he's a son of a pastor, he's saying he's also faith without works.
We have to leave it there before this turns into a sermon. But thank you so much, Waziri.
Thank you so
Dr.
much.
Kalua.
It was such a great time.
Fantastic.
And may God bless you.
Thank you
You're
so
the
much.
best.
Let's take a short break. Business news coming up next. Stay with us.